Thank you for joining my show.
Thank you, Wenwen.
Okay, let me ask my first question. Between 1 and 10, how likely do you think a war would occur between China and the US over Taiwan? And when could it be?
One thing I can say from research and writing is when it comes to Taiwan Island, it is the will to victory that is the most important measure, not necessarily the physical capacities. China's historically demonstrated tenacity and endurance on core national security priorities are well known to the U.S., given our country's rout by China and Korea, for example. Since Taiwan Island will always mean immeasurably more to China than the U.S., the outcome of war can be confidently predicted. The three joint communiques laid out path to peaceful unification of one China, which both nations, U.S. and China, sincerely believed would avert the current tension. But the U.S., frankly, and this is again my opinion only, I certainly don't speak for the government on this, but the U.S. undermined that path, first by passing the Taiwan Relations Act, 1979, and second by, at the appearance of the DPP, by embracing the secessionist ambitions of the Democratic Progressive Party. With our abandonment, apparent abandonment of the spirit of the communiques, China may find it necessary to unify by force. It's possible. Have no idea about the likelihood. But if the U.S. militarily intervenes, I think it's pretty safe to say that a total unrestricted war is pretty certain. Also, the likelihood that another sort of a problem, complication these days, is the likelihood that war is prematurely triggered by mistakes and miscalculations in the air and the sea and undersea surrounding the island is increasing. You know, history has many examples where unplanned incidents and accidents, they cascaded into major conflict. Regionally, the treaty entanglements in your region of the world are also similar to the pre-World War I European context. U.S. treaties with Japan, Australia, Philippines, and South Korea, yes, they're between the U.S. and those individual nations, but they will be causally interrelated if conflict breaks out. And China's treaties with North Korea and Russia are similarly interrelated. You can't get around the connectivity between these arrangements. Some in the U.S. that I've spoken with in reading sort of downplay Russia's interest in the Taiwan Island conundrum. But the 2001 Sino-Russian Treaty of Friendship constitutes an implicit defense pact. And in it, Russia states specifically that Taiwan is an inalienable part of China.
Why do U.S. media outlets show little interest in the topic of the U.S. will lose war with China over Taiwan?
The early media treatment was predictable and did little to highlight the danger of war. Also, the idea that the U.S. would lose a war with China or anyone else for that matter was, and for many Americans, is still inconceivable. However, the number of U.S. voices cautioning against war over Taiwan Island, which I'm trying to encourage, is growing. In a Russia Today op-ed, U.S. Marine Scott Ritter warned that the U.S. cannot defend Taiwan, that China knows it. And he later restated his warning in a very important Global Times interview. U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Dan Davis echoed many of those concerns in a recent Guardian article. And it's noteworthy that Lieutenant Colonel Davis, several years ago, predicted our defeat in Afghanistan and he was certainly an expert who would know. At a time, U.S. leaders were falsely reporting progress and sought to silence him. And here we are today. Precisely what he predicted happened. So he's a very authoritative voice. Those kinds of credible assessments, if no one's going to pay attention to my op-eds, that's fine. But credible assessments from such distinguished people should be read by our president before it's too late.
After you published a series of articles in the Global Times, have any U.S. officials or lawmakers got in touch with you?
In brief, no. Back in 2007, Senator Joseph Biden once championed better armored vehicles for warfighters engaged in combat in the Mideast. Reports that bureaucratic obstruction delayed their fielding, causing the unnecessary deaths of hundreds of Americans, confirmed his suspicions and certainly energized his efforts. The senator's fight for increased congressional fighting accelerated the deliveries, and it ended up saving many lives. He should definitely be commended for that. His support of me was also much appreciated at the time, but that is unlikely to happen.
Why did you choose to retire this time?
Going back, I have felt compelled to disclose the dangerous Taiwan island issue since I first researched and wrote on it in 2005. So this is nothing new. Those disclosures accurately predicted what is unfolding today. Over the years, I have written Presidents Bush, Trump, Biden, and recently the administration's national security team. I was fortunate to have one of my articles published in our Marine Corps Gazette, but my subsequent op-eds to U.S. papers were all rejected, and it was really the public that needs to hear these points. So my perspective has been ignored for many reasons, not the least of which is the fact that it comes from a random Pentagon bureaucrat. But the issue is urgent, and I reached out to Global Times, which caused my Pentagon removal and the initiation of an investigation. I saw no other avenue to raise the issues. We should not sacrifice the lives of American patriots, whether Marines, soldiers, sailors, or airmen, for laws, policies, and special interests that are counter to our national security interests. And we've seen this pattern in the past, and we really shouldn't. We should learn from history and not repeat it. As for your question regarding retirement now, I want to leave while I still have an opportunity to start something new. In this interview, I am sharing my opinions as a private citizen. They don't represent the views of my government employers.